screen?
Yes, we can.
Yes,
All right.
yes, we
All right.
can.
Okay, so we from one of the malware we discussed last week was ransomware, right? We talked about different malwares. We talked about DDoS attacks, and I also tried to give you guys some theoretical questions based on some of the questions that I've seen so far on Computer Security Plus to also enhance your learning. And so far, some people, I think some of you guys tried to attempt it, and I know some of us are working. And please, I would just want to encourage us to find time to do some of this assignment because it will really help us, get engaging. So, what is Let's Defend platform? At the start of this training, we talked about that it is not just an offensive training; it also involves defensive, and we'll also be carrying out various activities, various exercises on different platforms. One of which is the Let's Defend. So, Let's Defend platform is more tilt towards blue teamer. So, I explained to you guys in our first session that blue teamers are defensive, are the defensive security engineers or defensive professionals we have in security, right? So it is also used by security analysts. So the purpose of this platform is to give you an idea if your career journey is still towards cybersecurity analyst or an engineer or security officer, as the case may be, or even a red teamer, and you want to understand how to analyze malware, how to, how a SIM work, how to, escalate, and how to, how to analyze some of these and investigate some of this malware on the sandbox environment. This is a very good platform to come to. So I'll be walking you guys through the platform, and at the end of this session, you guys will also create your own account and you'll be doing some of the exercise. So when you go on Google, you just type let's defend.io. It should bring you here. You can create an account, just like you sign up on Facebook, and the next thing you do is you click on start investigation. So when you click on start investigation, it will take you to this platform, the next portal that you can see right here, right? So what it consists of various cases for SOC as a SOC analyst. So it puts you in that position as a SOC analyst, it will give us different classes, different cases for us to investigate and resolve, right? So, and as you can see at the left-hand side of the console, you can see we have monitoring, we can see log management, case management, endpoint security. So monitoring, that is where, if you go to monitoring, for example, that is where you are going to see just like a SIM, what a SIM does. A SIM monitors for alerts, to get alerts, based on high, if those alerts are high, medium, or low. So you get to see different alerts, that are popping up from different aspects of endpoints. So this is how a SIM works in the real life, where you have, so whether it is Splunk or it is IBM QRadar or it is Alien Vault, you have a portal where you are seeing alerts constantly from different endpoints, because those endpoints are being managed. Events from those endpoints are coming into the SIM. So the SIM is collecting those logs, and aggregating those logs on a single console. So that is what we have here. So when you sign up to the Let's Defend platform, you have free 5 cases to investigate per month. Then you have unlimited for the premium subscription, right? So one of the, as you can see, like I said, the monitoring dashboard gives you a view of a SIM, how a SIM gets alerts from different endpoints. Then the log management also did. Okay, I'll just open this tab so that I don't move from one tab to another. Let me just do this. Okay, open. So let me just open this in a new tab, log management. Sorry. then the case management, the endpoint. Okay, so under the monitoring, we have main channel that shows you alerts based on severity, low, medium, and high. Then we have under the investigation, once you've accepted, so you can see that we have alerts, right? Now, as a security analyst, the first alert you want to pay attention to are the ones that have high alerts. You will not start investigating a low alert when you have an high alert. That is the rule of engagement, right? So once you want to start investigating these alerts, you just click on take ownership. You have to click take ownership here on each of the. So once you take ownership, that alert will be moved to investigation under the investigation tab that we have here. Then after investigating the alert, right, then you can close the alert. That is how it works, right? So like I said, the monitoring have details of the various alerts that we have. Then if we go on to, what's it called? To the log management. The log management have, collects the logs from the endpoints, the logs from, event viewer, maybe it's application log, security log, as the case may be different from your router, from your switch, from your server. It gets this log and store them here, right? That is what the log management do. So you can see the IP addresses, the ports, where it gets these logs from. So that is just more like the name implies, manage the log, collect the logs, into a place where you can, look out for more details. As you can see, maybe you saw an alert and you want to investigate more. You can go on to look at the details where, for example, where the alert is coming from. You understand my point? The process that is triggering such alert. You understand? So you want to view the raw logs, right? Not just what you have on the monitoring dashboard, right? So that's what the log management do. Then the case management is where, I think I already have it. So the case management is where after creating a case, right, you will be able to follow up with the case. That's how a SIM works. You can create a case or you create an incident, right? For example, on a Splunk or on an IBM curator, you can create a case. Then the case is like, okay, you have this ticket that you are working on, and once you are able to investigate that case, you can close that case, or you transfer the case to another team that will be working on it. So then the endpoint is where we have the devices. The devices, for example, that we are talking, the devices that we are managing at the moment. So the Let's Defend already gives us these scenarios already. So all we need to do is read all the questions and investigate. So I'm going to walk you through my experience, what I've done, based on my experience on investigating some threats, how you go about investigating, how you go about getting facts and establishing that a particular endpoint has been infected, or that is the false positive, as the case may be. So, like I said, the first thing we'll go on to check is the monitoring. Then, on the monitoring dashboard, like after taking trying to make a review the cases that we have, like I said, the first rule of engagement is that you have to pay attention to the high alerts. Right, so you can see that we have 3 high alerts on this case. We have one, you can see one is saying ransomware detected, right? We have another one saying new schedule tax created. Then we have the third one saying possible ransomware activity. So from my experience, guys, you will be able to see that these 3 alerts, one is that ransomware is detected, and one is that showing possible ransomware activity. From our common sense knowledge, you will have to check this one first, because this is showing that this is already detected, that there's a system that already have ransomware that is being detected. So this call for a in the rules of priority, this is what we need to investigate first. That is, that's what we need to do, so that it doesn't start moving laterally within their organization. So we need to investigate this and, if possible, quarantine that system or bring it out of the network. This is the same thing you are going to do when it comes to when it comes to physical in the real life scenario, right? This is what I've done in banks, like for customers too. I have to go and look at the system. The first thing, which system is the main source of attack. That is what we are doing at this moment. So you can see from our, since we are going to be investigating this first, let's take a look at the few details that we have. We can see the event ID. We can see the event time, right? We can see the event time that we have. This was May. We can see the rule that triggered the event, that triggered the alert. One important thing to take note is the IP address. So this is the first question: which system was impacted? What is the IP address? Right? You have to take note of the IP address. Also, is there a file or a process that triggers this event? You can see that you can see the file that triggers this event, right? ab.exe. So it's an application, it's an executable file that triggers this event. We can also see that we have a hash file, the hash value of that file, right? We can see the size of the file. Then an important thing to take note is that this rule was generated and the event was allowed. You can see that it was not blocked, it was not quarantined, the event was allowed. That means that actually there was a malicious event that took place, and even though maybe we don't even know if there's a security control on that system, but it was allowed, it was successful. That's what it means there, right? So also, this is a sample file. One of the good things I like about the platform also is that they try to make it as real as possible. This file itself, to be honest with you, is a malicious file. It's not a it was not cooked up. It's actually a malicious file, one that was used for this this case that we are trying to investigate. So it is advisable, if you are going through this, please don't download. If you want to if you have a VM, you can download it and check it on your VM. Don't just go on to download a file and execute it on your system. Please, I'm saying it again, don't download any file on your own physical system. But if it is a VM, you have a VM, you want to check out the file, make sure that you can run it on your VM, right? So that is one of the advice I'm going to give, because they are using real life samples out there that that are detected. So the first thing we are going to do is that we are going to take ownership of this so that we can start investigating it. So please, I want to get your feedback. Are we all listening at this point? Is there any question at this point, so that before I move on?
Yeah, we can hear you. What was VM mean?
Yeah.
Okay, VM, a virtual machine.
We are listening.
Okay, a virtual machine. A VM means a virtual machine, just like VirtualBox, having a VirtualBox, having, for example, a window or a Kali. You know, having your Kali installed on a VirtualBox, or a what's it called? Apart from Kali, we have apart from VirtualBox, we also have VMware. So having your
desktop.
Yeah. So we can that is where you can run it. So please don't run any sample file on your system. Please, I'm begging you. All right. So I'm just going to move on.
Sorry, Nelson, is it being recorded? Someone asked.
Is live on YouTube.
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
Live on YouTube. All right. So, like I said, we are going to take ownership of this. Then I'm going to take ownership, right? So, yeah. So you click on continue once you take ownership of the file, right? So we've taken ownership of that particular file. You can see that it has moved on to it has moved on to the investigation channel, right? You can see we have it now. You can see that it's no more in the main channel. It has moved because we've taken ownership of that file. So now, like I said, we've done a little bit. We've gone through the details, and we've seen that we only have details around the file, the executable file, the hash, right? And we have details around the IP address.
The charger.
Sorry, is someone saying something? Okay, so we can continue, right? All right. So after taking ownership, you can see the next thing we have to do is to create a case, so that we'll move this event to the case management. Look at it, you have to create a case. Don't click close alert, create a case. So you create a case so that we can create a case on this. Then we click on continue. Now it is when we clicked on creating the case that will start the playbook. Now the playbook consists of several questions that we need to answer. Those are the questions that would challenge us to go and investigate if it is a false positive, or if it is if it's actually a ransomware event that was detected, or it's just a false positive. So we need to go through those series of questions one at a time, answer them one at a time. And as we answer those questions, we are going to be awarded marks, or we are going to lose mark, right? So that is how the platform works. So the next thing I'm going to do is to click on start playbook, right? So you can see the first thing is the first question is asking is for us to define the threat indicator. A threat indicator is like, okay, is to identify what is for us to identify what category of threat has been discovered. Now, if you look at, we have 4 options. The first one is saying unknown or unexpected outgoing traffic, internet traffic. What we are investigating at the moment is ransomware. So this is not unknown. This is not an outgoing. So I'm not going to choose that. The next one is antivirus program malfunctioning or becoming disabled for unknown reasons, right? So this is not this is not related to the event we are trying to investigate at the moment, right? So the next one we are going to look at is next option that we have here is unknown or unexpected services. An application configured to launch automatically on system boot. So this is also does not depict the kind of situation we are trying to investigate. So for my guess, I'm just going to go with order because I'm not seeing anything relating to ransomware, any category relating to ransomware. So I'm just going to select order. So in case you are trying to investigate an event and it doesn't, none of these options depict what you are doing, just click on order and click on next, right? So the first question and the next question we are going to answer is check if this malware is quarantined or clean. So now we already know that the it was allowed on the device, right? The first question, it was allowed on the device, but was it quarantined and was it clean? So we need to investigate to check. How do we know if it was quarantined or clean? We have to look at the activities, we have to investigate the activities of that malware to see what has happened, right? So, and they've given us option to investigate. I think I've opened the log management and the endpoint security. So at this point, I'm just going to go to log management. So what are we going to be investigating on the log management? Don't forget, we have information on the IP address, right? If we go back to, sorry. Yeah, so we have information on the IP address, which is this, right? So we are going to go to the log management to look out for that IP address. We are going to filter for events for that IP address and take a look at what we might get, right? So I'm just okay. Yes. Okay. So we have this is okay. So this is case management. I think we should have. So we have the endpoints. We have into case management here. So let me click on for the. Okay. So on the log management. All right. So I'm just going to do a search for that IP address. You can search for the IP address, right? You can see this is the IP address, and these are the what's it called, the log that is relating to this IP address. You can see the source IP that we have at the moment, right?
Please, sir, can we record the class? I don't know if it's being recorded.
Yeah, it's live on YouTube at the moment as we speak. Yeah, so you can see that we have 2 logs, the source IP address, you can see the source port, we can see the destination IP address and the destination port. So let's take a look at what we have on the first log. You can see we have that, you can see we have the requested URL. We can see it was a GET request, right? Then the action was permitted, right? The action was permitted, right? Now we can see a process, the process that was trying to send the GET request. So is PowerShell.esc, right? The parent process is .doc, and this is the MD5 hash of the parent process. Now we explain what we have here. We have a process PowerShell here that is trying to make a connection, that is trying to request access connection to this URL here. You know, so you can see that it's a GET request to access a URL, right? We don't know what that URL means. We just know that a process in this system was trying to make a connection to an external URL, right? Now, the question I want to ask you guys, do you think that it is normal for PowerShell PowerShell.esc application running on the system to try and make a connection to an external IP address? It is not normal, guys. It is not normal. That is what an attackers try to do. When they've installed a malware on the system, they try to establish a connection to a CNC server, right? So once they establish that connection, then that's how they exfiltrate data. This is what happened this week for the Twicher streaming platform that was hijacked. This is just what was the tactics that was used. After they bypass, they try to infect the server, they try to make a connection to an external server and exfiltrate data. So for PowerShell to be making a connection, that seems to be a malicious behavior. So it is something that we need to investigate. So this is why I'm just going to, you can see that the parent process look like a doc. So, and don't forget, attackers can use different names to name their malicious application, right? So just to bypass detection, antivirus detection. So we are seeing that this parent process, it tries to call PowerShell and tries to tell PowerShell to make a connection. So it seems like this process was downloaded on that system, and is because you can see that it's a parent process. So it tries to talk to the it tries to trigger the PowerShell.esc to make a connection to this what's it called, to the external IP address. And you can see that it was successful, it was permitted, right? So the first thing we want to establish, since we have the hash, we want to establish, is it a malicious, is this parent process a malicious file? Because all we know is the name. The only thing that can help us now is the hash. So I'm just going to copy the hash and I'm going to go to Virustotal. A very good place to start with is Virustotal, guys. I think this is it. Sorry, okay, it's coming up. Yeah, so a good place to start, guys, is Virustotal, and we have so many other platforms that we can use. But like I said, this is always a very good one to start with. So we are not uploading a file, so just go and click the URL. I think we are searching for an hash that we copied out. So we want to search out for this hash. If there's any record on Virustotal at the moment that have this hash, we want to check the reputation of this hash file. Okay, guys, you can see that the reputation of the hash file is malicious. It's been flagged by different antivirus solution out there has been malicious, right? So that shows, this just gives us the fact that that file that we have under, what's it called? The file we have under the log management, right? The file that we have under the log management, this particular parent process file is a malicious file. That's what it's telling us, right? That is what it's telling us. So this means that this particular system is infected and it is not quarantined, because if it is quarantined, it will not be showing permitted here. That's number one, right? So we've established that we've been able to see that we have a file that spun up, what's it called? A file that spun up PowerShell to connect to an external CNC control, what's it called? The control server for the attackers, to either download something, right? So, and we can see that file is malicious, but it's not telling us, from what we can see so far, it's not telling us anything about ransomware at this moment, right? So it could just be that this is just another dropper. This is called a dropper. So this is one thing you guys need to know. When an attack occurs on the system, it tries to import other malicious activity, other malicious file. It does not just come alone. It comes in bulk, it comes in bundles. So this might just be one of those dropper that was imported into that system. So at this point, what I'm just going to do, we are going back to that question. Sorry, we are going back to, I said we are going to investigate on the log management and secondly on the endpoint to establish our fact. So the IP address of that system was .88. If you don't know it, you can also search for it. You can search for it. You can just go back to your monitor page, copy the IP address, right? Then go back to your what's it called, the endpoints. You can search for it. Yeah. So this just shows how how you can analyze events on a SIEM, on an endpoint detection and response, or on an SDR, extended detection and response solution. This is how they work generally. If you can understand and master these things that I'm teaching you with Let's Defend, trust me, using any of a SIEM platform to analyze events, you will be, at least you know the basics, you know the fundamentals, of how to analyze any event. So now we are filtering for this attack. Then let's go and look at some of the activities that we might have for this system, because now we want to look at the system. All the while we have been looking at the platform, seeing the logs, trying to investigate the logs. Now, we want to investigate the system itself, try to check some activities on that system. So you can see what we have now on the system. We want to go through some of the details we have. First of all, let's take a look at if it has some browser history. We can see there's no record on the browser history. What about the command? Let's take a look at the command history. If there's any command that was triggered on that particular system. Let's take a look at the network connection. Also, we don't have any details. Then let's take a look at the processes. Great, we have some processes that are running on this system. Now, one of the things as a cybersecurity analyst that you need to be aware of is the function of legitimate processes that we have on Windows operating system. Right? It is very important. You need to be able to look at a process and say, is this process a legitimate process, so that you don't just go and delete any process and affect, and cause more havoc on that endpoint. So I'm just going to explain in brief some of this process. We have the Svc Hosts, we have this acro reader. This is a legitimate process, and if you don't know, you can just copy this process, check it up on Google. This is a legitimate process that is used to update what's it called, the Adobe Reader, the PDF Adobe Reader application on Windows, right? Then we have the next one is, and a very good way for you to check, you can see that is the Acrobatic Reader. A very good way for you to also check is that you can copy the hash file and check it up on Virustotal to be sure that this is a legitimate one, legitimate process that is running on Windows. You can see now that you can see that this is a legitimate process. It's not been flagged. It is the legitimate acrobatic process that is used to update the PDF reader, right? So let's go back to investigating this. So this is legitimate. I'm just going to leave it. Then the next one, Svc Hosts.esc. What does it do? The full meaning is service host. Service host. Service host is a legitimate application on Windows. What it does is that it's helped to load services on dynamic link library file. There are certain files that are called DLL files, right? So the SVC host helps to make sure that it spawn up or load, it provide a shell where these services can run. So we can have like 2, 3, or 4 or 5 services running from the DLL file. And it is the SVC host that will manage each of these 5 independently. So if 5 services are running, the SVC host will independently manage these processes so that if a particular service has a problem, it does not affect the other services that are running. So if you can go on and on to check, like I said, a very good way, you can check the process and the MD5 hash on a platform, on what's it called, on some of the open source threat intelligence platform that we have to check if they are the legitimate process. Because why I'm saying this is that attackers can create a malicious file and name is SVC host. The question now is, how do you detect which one is a legitimate process and which is not a legitimate process? Now, most of the legitimate process, I'm just going to put up this. Let me bring it. Can you see my screen, guys? Can you still see my screen?
Yes.
All right. So most of the legitimate processes, right, are stored. I will show you a folder under the C drive, Windows, System 32. That is where you have most of the legitimate applications that are stored, System 32. Most applications, on the ground application, you can see DLL files. These are legitimate applications. Any application you see here are legitimate. Now, an attacker can go and create a malicious file and name is SVC host, but he will not put it on this part. He can go and put it on a different part. He can go and put it on system Windows. Maybe you can create a folder and put it there, right? So once you see that the SVC host is not within, or any legitimate process is not within this folder, this is a legitimate folder. If it's not within this folder and is bearing the same name, that process is malicious. So this is also one of the ways for you to differentiate between a legitimate process and a malicious process, right, that have the same name, right? So let's go back to our attack. This is just one of to let you guys know how to analyze and investigate events, right? So not to because of our time, I'm just going to if you go on and on to check each of these processes, you will notice that they are actually legitimate. Most of them, winlogon.exe, when a user log on into Windows, right, it is this winlogon.exe application that will display the user profile. So if you have 2 users that have an account on the server, on the system, the winlogon.exe, it will display your profile to you based on the user that is logging in at that moment. It is a process that is in charge for booting up a system, making sure that if the system is not active at the time, it goes on to sleep mode. So that is what winlogon.exe does. We have explorer.exe. This is the legitimate process for Explorer browser. We have chrome.exe, the same for Chrome browser. These are their legitimate application. Like I said, you can see the parts where it is stored, right? You can see for WinLogon also, you can see Windows System 32, right? So if it's not in this part, then it is not legitimate, guys. It is not legitimate, guys. So you can see for Chrome and for Explorer the same. It is under system Windows, right? So these are legitimate part. Now, let's go on to look at, okay, you can see this is also, like I said, the reason, apart from using the hash file, you can also check with their part to look at which part the file is, which part is it located. Is it the legitimate window part, that it is expected of, or it has a different part. So we can see that it is as like I told you guys earlier, this is the legitimate part. So I can say for surety that these are all legitimate applications. Somebody just raised up his hand. Yeah. Okay, so you can ask a question.
Thank you very much. I wanted to ask, is it possible for a cyber attacker to plant a file in that parent folder, like in a legitimate folder, so you cannot detect whether, like if you're trying to use the folder the folder path to determine if it's a malicious file.
Yeah.
Like the cyber attacker, can the cyber attacker put that file in the correct path?
Yes, of course, it can. But now the issue there would be that the attacker can put that malicious file in this part, but he will not name it the same name. He's going to name it a different name. So the path is just one of the ways for we to use to check, right? It is not just one. So that's why the next thing, once you've checked that a file is in its legitimate file, the next thing you are going to use to check is the hash file, right? You can check the hash file, like I said, on platform like this, on Virustotal hybrid analysis, any.run.esc. You can see file distributed by Microsoft. You can see that this is a legitimate process, right? If you go on to check the process name, you can see the details. You can see that it is signed. It is a signed process, right? This shows that these are legitimate process, right? Did I answer your question? Is that answered?
Yes. Thank you very much. Yes.
All right. So so apart from the path, like you mentioned, you have to also check the hash. Why? Because the hash of a file does not change, right? A hash. So remember when we are talking about CIA confidentiality, integrity, and availability, right? We said hash is used to establish what? Integrity, right? Hash is a way for you to establish integrity. So if a hash change, it is a way for you to know that that file has been tampered with, right? That is what it means, right? So so if we go on to scroll, you can see outlook.esc. Like I said, these mostly legitimate application. The ones that come to my mind at the moment is some of these ones that we have underneath. One of them is this file. You can see that we just have the file. We don't have any details about it. Look at the name, it seems a little bit strange, right? Secondly, this is a legitimate file, but you can see that it was used to run a command, right? Now it was used to run a command, but I'll come back to that. You can see this is also a legitimate process, but it was used to run a command. Now I want to chip in these guys. There's a way attackers operate these days. Attackers operate using, there's what we call off-the-land attack, living off-the-land attack. What that means is that attackers try to leverage legitimate applications and use them for malicious purposes. So you will not know, if you are just an average user or you don't have experience, you will not find out. So attackers will not just create a different application. They try to, for example, use PowerShell.esc, CMD.esc, some of these applications, Svc Hosts.esc, to run certain applications, to carry out their malicious activity. So that's what they call living off the land, trying to use what we have in that system to carry out a malicious attack. One of the reasons why they do that is to bypass detection, so that your antivirus solution don't get to detect what they are doing, right? So if you take a look at now, I want you guys to, can you remember that during the monitor phase, we discovered that the name of the file is what? ab.esc. And you can see that we have ab.esc now. So this call for us to investigate this ab.esc properly. So you can see that we only have the hash, we don't know the path. So let's go on to check what we have for this file, if it is malicious or not. Okay. All right, guys, you can see that this is currently being flagged. This is live platform. That's why I told you guys that these malwares that we are trying to investigate now, these are legitimate, what's it called, malware. These are not ones that were created for simulation purposes. That's why I am advising that don't download this. You can see that they are being flagged by real life vendors out there, right? So these are legitimate malicious files that we are investigating at the moment. So you can see that it's flagged by 60 vendors. Then 3 sandboxes also have details about this, right? So we are also going to take a look at some of these sandboxes to investigate how this malware works, right? So you can see that most of this antivirus solution term this hash file ransom. You can see that it is related to ransomware. right? So that means that ab.esc that was allowed on that system was actually a ransomware, and it seems that it was successful, that its operation was successful on that system. You can see from the best of the best vendor, they've detected it, some detect it as Trojan, some detect it as a ransomware, right? You can see these are all showing us. So let's take a look at some other details that we have on this malware. Let's go into details. You can see, you can find out the, not just the MD5, you can see the SHA-1 or SHA-256. So there are applications that just allow SHA-256, SHA-1. We can also get those details from here. So let's scroll down to see some important information that might be useful. So I want you guys to take note of this. Like I said, attackers can name, you can see that in this scenario, it is not just named ab.esc. Some attackers have also renamed the file as software.esc, file.esc, taxhost.esc. So these are the various names that are attached to this hash file that we are talking about. Can you see that it is not a signed file? It is not signed. It does not have a legitimate reputation, right? Guys, you can see my point exactly. Now, let's go on to see some other information that we have. Okay. Okay, so let me scroll down. Yeah. So these are the details of the endpoint that submitted the file, right? Because somebody have already submitted that this particular file was used to attack the system, right? Okay. Somebody's asking a question, sorry. Can Virustotal run offline? Yes, Virustotal. Yeah, on Kali. I think Virustotal has some application with Kali, and if no, you can run it as a standalone. Not, you can access it not only on the browser, but it does not run offline, because this Virustotal is a database that is updated, per day, per time. So there are new information that are coming. So if it is offline, right? Yeah. So Jane, yes, of course, there are others. I'm going to show you guys other platform, other sandboxes apart from Virustotal. Yes, of course, there are other ones that we can work on. Yeah. So I'm just starting my investigation with Virustotal, right? So, but I'm going to fling into other ones and show you guys what we have. All right. So, so like I said, guys, I told you guys, when a malware is attacking a system, it does not come alone. It comes with different dropper. That's the word. That's the term. That's the technical term. Dropper. 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 So and now we have different dropper, which, and most of these dropper exist as a dynamic link library file. So the question is, what does a dynamic link library file does? So more like it is a dynamic link library file contains a program or a code that is reusable by other programs on the system. So on your Windows you can have different processes that are trying to reuse a code or a program. So most of this program or code exists within a dynamic link library file. So you can, and one of the things is that you can't execute a DLL file directly. It's before you can execute it, you need to spoon up another application that is called run DLL 32.esc. So this malware tried to drop this DLL file to establish a purpose. Now, let me make it more simpler. An attacker can create a malicious file, right? And the extension will be a .dll file, such that once that DLL file is on your system, the purpose will be one, maybe to decrypt, to encrypt your files, or to capture your cookies, sensitive information from your browser. You understand? Or to serve as a rootkit, so that any information you are typing will be recorded and exfiltrated back to the CNC server, right? So some of these are some of the imported files. When that ab.esc was executed, these are some of the imported files that came with it. That's what I'm trying to explain. Now, can you see that we did not see any connection. Now there's no record of any connection back to the CNC server from what we are seeing so far. We didn't see anything that is relating that, for example, IP address, DNS, nothing about that is related to this hash file, right? So, and let's not go deep without forgetting where our question is coming from. So the first question, what we are trying to investigate on is to check if the malware is quarantined or clean, right? So from what we've checked so far, right? Let's go on to look at some other things. You can see, like I said, look at the drop. You can see these are the drop files that I was explaining to you guys. These are the list of drop files that was dropped. You can see this is a graph showing what really happened. And the ab.exe was executed and it dropped 10 files, right? It's dropped 10 files. So those are the 10 files that we're trying to look at the moment, right? These are the files that was dropped, right? So trying to take a look at, let's take a look at the behavior of the malware. You can see that when the ab.exe start executing, what happened that most, just like every other attack, they tend to modify details on the registry key. One of the reasons they do that is that one is to establish what we call persistency. They want to update the registry key so that even if you have the system and turn it off, it can still run, right? That is one of the reasons. Secondly, they want to, if it's a ransomware, it will go on to the registry key so that it can delete what we call the DLL. It can delete what we call the shadow copy file. A shadow copy file is like a backup file for your system. So ransomware, that is what most ransomware tries to delete immediately, so that once they encrypt your file, you cannot restore you cannot restore to a previous instance for that your Windows operating system. So that shadow copy file is what is a legitimate Windows process that is used, right? That is used to make a snapshot of your system. Let me show you guys did you notice that during did you notice that when this application was executed, what are the other things that we find out was that you can see that WMIC was used. Like I said, this is a living off the land attack. WMIC is a legitimate process, but ab.es uses this WMIC to delete the shadow copy. You can see it does it in a non-interactive mode so that you as a user, even if you are using your system that time, you won't know, in a quiet mode. So all this, what it tries to do is to delete this shadow copy. The shadow copy, like I said, is like a backup, a snapshot of your operating system. So it is what is used to recover a system. If shadow copy is not available, you cannot recover a system. This is how Windows try to recover, from a crash, or try to do a system recovery or reset. You understand? So if you have, maybe you notice that your system is slow or something, you can reset your system to a previous instance using the shadow copy. So the ransomware first attack that shadow copy, make sure they delete it so that once you want to restore to a previous instance, there's nothing to restore back on. So we saw that it was successful. WMIC was a legitimate process that was used to delete the shadow copy, right? Now we also see that another process called admin.exe was also used. You can see delete system backup, right? Was also used to delete any backup that ever exists on that system. Then we can see VSS admin. VSS admin 2 is a legitimate process that is used to execute shadow copy. But this time around, it is used to delete the shadow copy. Anything that has to do with backup. That is what this malware does, right? So this seems that this was not quarantined. From the behavior that we have seen so far, this just showed that it was not quarantined, it was not cleaned it was not detected by any antivirus. If it was, then why should we have shadow copy deleted after the ab.exe was executed? That is my own point of argument, my own point of fact, from this investigation. We can also from Virustotal that these are the commands that was that was initiated, try to use WMIC. WMIC is a subset of PowerShell that is used to execute commands, right? That is what, and attackers use WMIC psexec.exec. These are some of the powerful processes that are used to delete files. So we can see at the moment that it was successful. Somebody was saying that do we need to, don't worry, over time I would show you guys other sandboxes apart from, but we need to answer each of the questions ASAP. What do we have here? So check if the malware is quarantined or not. So I want to hear from you guys, is it quarantined or not quarantined?
Not quarantined.
Not quarantined, right? Yeah. So it's quarantined. So we are going to go on to the next question. Analyze malware. So the question here is to analyze the malware in a third-party tool and find the command and control address. So they want us to find the command and control address. So we have 5 tools that we are going to analyze on. I'm going to click on this. Any run.run, we have already opened Virustotal, URL scan, then hybrid analysis. So for that person that was asking the other time, if we have other platforms, these are the other platforms that we have that we can also use. If one of the 3 best that I use every now and then is any.run, Virustotal, and hybrid analysis, you can't go wrong with this platform, this sandboxing environment. I'm telling you based on my life experience, not just on the simulation platform, based on life, how I've been able to investigate ransomware, rootkit activities for companies and give them facts, about the attack techniques and procedures, about this malicious attacks. So let's go on to any.run and go on to see what we have. So first of all, we are going to go on to copy the hash file. That's what we have. That is the artifact that we have at the moment. So, okay, so guys, this is a sandbox environment. It is free, but it is only free for, it has limited features at the moment for the free version. So I think that's enough for us to investigate at the moment. So since you are not uploading any details, so I'm not going to create any new tags, right? So what I'm going to do is to go to public tags to check if there's any public record for what we are trying to look out for. On the URL host, you can see, okay, so we can search for MD5, you can see search for domain SHA-256. So I'm just going to drop the MD5 here and take a look at if there's any record. You can see on this platform, URL host does not have any record. So this is not useful to us. Let me check on URL scan. Let me go to the search. Okay, let me search for this. Any record? You don't have any record also on URL scan. I'm just going to close this, guys. Yeah, you don't have any record for what we are looking for. Okay, we have hybrid analysis. So let's do a search. Hybrid analysis. All right, guys, we have record on hybrid analysis about this event. Let's take a look at what we have. It is named here as file. It is named here as ab.b. Let's see. Okay, so we have ab.exe. So let's investigate this one. Since it's behind the same name, let's see what we have. Okay. All right. Also, let's take a search on what we have on any.run. So I'm just going to click and search. Please, if there's any question, please let me know. Don't, if you don't understand, make sure you ask questions so that we can all discuss it. So guys, you can see also for on any.run, we have record for this hash file. Let's take a look at, let's go on to see what we have for, we can see that we have ab.exe. So it's around somewhere. So let's go on to investigate this, this file, guys. So we have 2 platforms that have details. Sorry, 3. We have on Virustotal, any.run, and hybrid analysis. Great, guys. You can see this is showing us some good details about how the application was executed. Like I explained to you guys, when the ab.esc was run, it spun up wmic.esc, and wmic is a command that was used to delete the shadow copy file, right, in a non-interactive mode. You can also see wbadmin.esc was also used to delete the system backup that we have, right? You can see it was deleted, right? So because you can see the processes that are going on, we can see VSS admin.esc, like I said, is also a legitimate application. But like I explained to you guys earlier, at this time, attackers are using legitimate applications to carry out malicious intent. That is what we call the living off the land attack, like I explained to you guys. So it is also used to delete the shadow, in a quiet mode, right? So these are all different activities that were carried out on this system. Now, but based on the question that was being asked, you can see that there was no record on the HTTP request. It was just there to encrypt file. It was not there to exfiltrate the data out. So this attack was just a ransomware attack, not to exfiltrate data, not to have any connection, because you can see zero connection was made, no DNS record, nothing was made. So if we go back, if this is not enough fact, we can go back to see from hybrid analysis to see if we have any connection to a CNC server. I'm trying to scroll down to see if there's any record. We've already noticed how this malware behaves, but you can see the same thing that we've seen from other platform, right? So you can see no relevant DNS connection. So to answer, there was nothing under network analysis on this system. So to answer this question, you can go back to say, where's the question again? All right. So guys, what's the answer to this question, guys? Can drop it on chat. You can
Malicious.
So okay, is it malicious or non-malicious?
Malicious.
Somebody say malicious. Is there anybody that have a different answer? So this is malicious, right? So from our investigation, we've seen that it is malicious. Someone is dropping, okay. All right, so guys, now we have the next question asking us, check if someone requested the C2 server, right? So now, we've checked. We did not see any requests on the C2 server. So he's saying that please go to the log management page and check if the C2 address was accessed, right? You can check if the malicious file is run by running the C2 address on the malicious file. Okay, so let's go back to log management. Let's go and filter for the IP address and check if there's any C2 server, if there's any connection to a C2 server, right? Based on what we have in the question. So if we go back to log management, you can see, guys, we only have 2 records for this IP address. We've checked so far. We only see that it is a PowerShell process. It is not a ab.esc. We only have a PowerShell process that is making a connection. And the PowerShell, we saw that the attack, the parent process, is actually different from what the ransomware. When we check the hash file, it's a different attack. It's a different malicious file. It's different from what we are investigating. So if you take a look at the next one, this is explorer.esc. Explorer.esc trigger chrome.esc to make a get request to this URL, right? So if we go on to check this, what's it called? This hash file, let's see if it's actually a legitimate one or a malicious parent process. You can see that it is actually legitimate. It's not detected. So from what we've seen so far, that there was a connection. A connection was, where's it again? A connection was made, but it was not related to ab.esc. That is my point. it was a PowerShell that was making that connection, and it was a different malicious event. So the question here is, please click yes if someone accessed the malicious address. Otherwise, click no. So what is the answer, guys? What do we go on for at this point? You can drop your answer on the chat. You can unmute your mic. Let's hear from you.
So automatically not accessed.
Not accessed.
Always
Do we agree with not accessed?
me.
Sorry?
As it
Anybody with a different answer at this point? It is not accessed, right? All right. So we can go on with not accessed. Now they want us to add our artifact. All along we've been working with hash files, right? We've been working with hash files. So don't forget, all we had was hash file, the file name, and also the IP address. So if we take a look at what we have here, what are the options? MD5, IP address, email, then what's it called, URL. So we've been working with the hash file. So I'm just going to go with MD5. Then I'm going to copy the hash file, right? Put it here. Then I'm going to add a comment to say MD5 hash for the ab.esc file, right? It's just ransomware file, and I'm just going to click next, right? So if you have more, you can click plus and add more. But I think this is what we have. We have the hash file. That's what we've been using to investigate on different sandboxing environment. So I'm just going to click next. So based on our analysis so far, they want us to make a note. So I'm just going to put this that they run some the attack. ab.esc also the shadow. We notice that the shadow copy file was deleted, and shadow copy file was deleted, and yeah, and the attack was not the attack wasn't detected. It was detected but was allowed, right? Was detected but allowed. So guys, this is how you're going to support in a real life scenario. You need to put a more elaborate, snapshot, to back up your claim, because what you've just done will be passed on to. What you've just done will be passed on to what's it called? It will be passed on to the incident response team, the senior investigative team, to go through what you've just analyzed. So you need to provide enough record for them to go through, So I'm just going to do this. All right, so we've been able to go through the playbook, right? We've been able to go through the playbook, but one other thing that we also need to take note of is that back on the endpoint system, because we've been able to establish that this particular malware took place on this system, and this system is, in fact, not just ransomware. We also find out that there's also another malware that tries to make a connection to a CNC server. So at this point, I'm just going to make sure that I quarantine. You can see quarantine this particular system. So can quarantine the system, contain it, so that it does not infect other systems within the network. And I'm going back to the case that we've been able to close. So let's continue. Let's see, is there any other information for us to respond to? Okay, so guys, we've been able to go through the playbook. The next thing we need to do is to close the alert. We need to close the alert after, so you come here under the monitoring, go on to this, this sign, the smart sign, then click on close the alert. So we are asked at this point, is it a true positive or is it a false positive? So guys, what do you think? Is it a true or a false positive?
True.
It's a true positive. Okay, great. So it's a true positive because the events actually happened just as it was reported, you know. So I'm just going to put something here. So, and it's telling us here, it's around somewhere. Attack. Successful. The data wasn't exfiltrated. Right. So that is what I'm just going to close the alert with. So once we close the alert, you can see we've been able to close the alert. Then we are going to look at, we'll go out to look at to see how what we've earned if we meet the correct answer. So under the monitoring, you can see we're able to you can see our score. We're able to answer correctly. That it's a true positive. We're able to also, based on the playbook answers, you can see the points that we have. So if we actually miss any of the answers, you would have seen them in red, showing that we didn't get any of the answers correctly, right? So at this point, is there any question? So this is how, you know, how you investigate malware attacks. You know, this is just some of the ways, not all. There are so many ways, you know. You have to check through the file itself. You have to open the file. If it's a JavaScript file, look at the code. You know, there are so many processes. If the command, there are times where the command that we saw under the endpoints, where we saw under the endpoints, under the processes, where all this command, it will be encrypted, right? It is encoded. You will not see this way. So you have to go and look for a way to decode it, you know, and make sense of that data. You know, so there are several ways, but these are just some of the basic ways for you to establish if a process is legitimate or not, right? So I don't know if we have any question at this point before we jump on. So there's no question. You guys will create an account. Like I said, it's free. You create an account on this. Then once you create an account, you also attempt this what's it called, this exercise that we just did. Attempt it on your own to establish so that you're able to remember. Then also out of the there are also other what's it called, there are also other, the one you will have to do is the next high alerts that we have. You can see we have another high alert, possible ransomware activities. Try and go through this, and please go through it and take a snapshot on the document. Take a snapshot. Then also where you saw that we are able to take a snapshot, go through the whole process, and, you know, take a snapshot to this point. on the document, then you can submit that. That will be the project that I'll be working on this week on the Let's Defend platform. So don't forget, go through this one, then also go through this one. But what I want to see is this second one. Go through it yourself, go through the hash file and make up, establish your fact if it is a true positive or it's a false positive, So I don't know if there's any question at this point. So before we go on to our slide so that we can close by 6. Is there any question, guys? Can we move on?
So all right. Can we have like 5 minutes break?
All right. We can have a 5-minute break. Then we can come back and go on with our slide.
I think Uche has a question. Uche, can you quickly on?
Good evening, sir. Good evening, all.
Yeah, good evening.
My question is just a little bit. I just need a little clarification. You spoke about investigating about some malicious attack. So I just need a clarification about the feed we use. Is it only the hash sign, or do we use the IP address also? Like maybe during the line you talk about IP address. I don't know. I think I missed the line there.
All right.
Also, you've been talking about the hash file.
Okay, so this is it. The IP address, right? The IP address is an internal IP address, right? So I can't take this IP address and search it on open source platform. The IP address can be used to check, for example, the SIM platform or the security solution that is on your network, right? You can use the IP address to search, to look out, okay, is there another system that this IP tried to connect to, and this process tried to reach, So remember, we use the IP address basically on the log management, right? This is where we're able to use the IP address on the log management, where we're able to use it to filter for logs. We also use the IP address on, on the endpoint, right? On the endpoint system itself, on the endpoint, we use the IP address on the endpoint to check the processes that are running, right? But when you want to look out for events that are happening on open source intelligence, you don't use that because it's a private IP address. Nobody have record of your private IP address. So the only thing you can use is, for example, the hash file or the file itself. If you have a sample file, like somebody over the weekend, during the week, one of our students, contacted me as I think a phishing email was sent to her. She sent that email, the file to me, and I was able to analyze it to say, oh, it was actually a malicious phishing email, because of, so it could either be the hash file. Secondly, it could either be the file itself. You understand, the either .exe file or the whatever extension it comes with. But you can't use the IP address except it's an external IP address. Of course, now this is what you can now do, guys. Okay, so let me show you something that we didn't do. On the log file, you notice that this IP address was trying to connect to a destination IP address, which is this. So we can also use this public IP address to make a search, right? We can go on to Virustotal and look out if we have any details on this IP address. So if you are going to use the IP, you can see that there are 2 events. That means it is also malicious, right? But when we use the hash, we have more records on the hash, right? So you can use the IP address, but make sure that it's a public IP address that you're using to investigate, right? Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you so much.
All right. Okay. So guys, just give me, okay, someone, Benedicta, okay, can I hear your question?
Yeah, and sorry, how do you differentiate between a public IP address and a private one?
Okay, so we'll discuss that in our next slide. So I will show you that. So we have a slide that we'll be talking about now. We'll be going through now, but just give me, let's give me like 2-3 minutes so we can just go through the slide together. Yeah, and I'll be able to answer a question there. So guys, so Uche, do you have any question? Can we?
No, I don't have any questions. Sorry, I forgot to lower my hand. I just lowered it now.
All right. Okay. So can we continue, guys? So can we wrap off? So basically, let's talk about networking. Networking is a very huge field, right? On its own, but as a cybersecurity personnel professional, what do we need to know in networking? What are basic concepts that we need to be aware of? So we're starting off with the OSI model, right? Sorry. Okay. So we'll be starting off with the OSI model, right? So I know that most of you guys have heard of the OSI model. Basically, this is just a refresher. So what it contains is it contains a 7-layer what's it called model that is used to describe how a system can connect to a network or a system can communicate with another system, right? So, and oftentimes, before I started my cybersecurity career, I've always seen this like maybe a theoretical diagram, just like every other diagram that we have out there. But over the course of my career, personally, I think these have really helped me. Understanding the OSI model have really helped me a lot in terms of troubleshooting and isolating issues, honestly. And to be honest with you, as a cybersecurity person, you're not just going to be dealing with logs, malwares, or security solutions. Don't forget, these security solutions sit on networking, right? They need to have IP address, your firewalls, your antivirus solutions, your SIM works with IP address. They need to have open ports before they can work or connect to any other system. So your knowledge on this is very important, right? So let's start with, like I said, it has 7 modules, 7 layers. So the first is that is the open system interconnection model. So it's the first is the application layer. So the question is, what does this application layer do? What does it involve? So the application layer allows endpoint applications that we have on our system to connect to network resources. For example, I'll give you an example. We have, we have a browser, right? A browser uses HTTP or HTTPS to make connection. So an example of application layers or protocols that are within these layers, HTTP, we use SMTP to send emails, right? Using Outlook or your Gmail or whatever application you are using. The protocol that is used to send that email is SMTP. We have POP, that is, what's it called again? What's the full meaning of POP? What's it called? Let me check.
Post Office Protocol, sir.
Thank you, sir. Post Office Protocol version 3, right? We have Post Office Protocol. We also have we also have the FTP, right? PuTTY as an application make use of SSH, right? SSH protocol. So these are application layers. These are applications that human beings like us interact with, to send information, to make requests of information, or to send data, right? That's the application layer. And like I said, the SMTP, HTTPS, what's the FTP protocol, RDP, for remote connection. These are protocols that all sit within this application layer. We've talked, the presentation layer talks about how data is being presented, right? So for example, when you make a request with application layer, right, the data needs to be presented in a certain format. It can either be in an encrypted format, or encoded format, or it is decrypted. So if you send requests using HTTPS, it is encrypted, right? It is encrypted, right? So it goes from the sender to the receiver. So in its encrypted or decrypted form, that is what the presentation layer. We have different files. We have different data that has different formats, that comes with different extension. So this also talks about the presentation layer. For example, JPEG files, you have, I'll give you, for example, maybe you have a site that you're expected to upload a document, but it's telling you that this document needs to be in a particular format, right? So if you have the document in, for example, a PDF format, you have to convert it, and if it's accepting just JPEG or what's it called, GIF format, you have to convert it to that extension before. So that is what presentation layer is talking about. How data is being presented, either compressed format or decompressed format, or encoded format, right? So that is the presentation layer, So then we talk about session layer. Now, session layer talks about establishing end connection between two systems, or between an endpoint and another endpoint in a remote location. So session, you are trying to manage sessions. Like for I'll give you, for example, if you are talking about, for example, we have two systems on a LAN or on a network, and they are trying to make connection with each other, right? They need to, you can establish session. You can, for example, we have a caller and a receiver, and you want to add somebody else to that call. First of all, there's a session between the first caller and the receiver. Now, if you add another person to that call, we have multiple sessions. Now, the ability for that session to be managed, it is what we described on the session layer. So it helps us to not only ensure that connections are established, it also ensures that it can manage these sessions between two hosts or two or more hosts. And like I said, the protocols that are within the session layers are the NetBIOS protocol and the PPTP protocols. These are what we have on the session layer. Then we move down to the transport layer. Transport layer ensures that data is transferred without any error, without any duplication, and it is done in the right sequence. So whenever you are transferring data, the transport layer checks that, okay, is this data transferred? Is there any error? Check for any error, check some error. It checks to ensure that the data is transferred in the right sequence, and thirdly, there is no duplication, right? So that is what happens within the transport layer, that data is transferred correctly. So this is where we talk about connection and connectionless protocol. We are talking about transmission protocol, and we have two types, the TCP and the UDP. For the TCP, we are talking about the three-way handshake. Then the UDP is a connectionless protocol. Doesn't check if any three-way handshake is established before data can be transferred, unlike the TCP. So the transport layer, like I said, make sure that data is transferred without any error. Check to ensure that it is transferred in the right sequence and there's no duplication. Then we talked about the network layer. This is where we have the IP addresses, right? This is where we talked about path determination, how data move from the source to its destination. Of course, data needs to be tagged with an address. But this time around, we're talking about the IP address. So the devices that exist within is the router, right? Router, the layer 3 switches. These are devices that exist. But the protocol, we are talking about IP version 4, IP version 6, IPsec protocol. These are the protocols that exist within the network layer. So path determination, logical addressing are the things that are the major function of the network layer. Then we talked about the data link layer. So majorly, this is where we have, we read the MAC address from the packets. We are talking about segments, is this section frame? We are talking about frame. The data is referred to a frame at this point. So we are referring to segments. So within a particular LAN, endpoints within a particular LAN communicate, based on the MAC address, But the router ensures that it breaks communication. It ensures communication between two LANs or between different ones in different remote locations. But within a particular LAN, it communicates with a MAC address. So just like somebody will explain that IP address is similar to your home address. MAC address is similar to your own apartment. So specific, and these MAC address are physical addresses, right? They are physical addresses that are hard coded to your devices, unlike IP addresses that can change, you know. Then lastly, we have the physical layer. The physical layer, this is where we talked about, what's it called? We talk about the raw data, how in terms of in bit format, zeros and one. We talk about cables, we talk about wireless signals, right? So when for example, if you are in the banking industry and your systems all of a sudden stop browsing to the internet, the first layer you want to check, you want to check is where you want to check the physical layer. You want to check, is the cable you are using correctly connected? Is it working? Is it that there is an issue with the cable, right? So this is where you check the cable, the types of cable, you check that the switch port is correctly configured. So that is the physical layer. If that is fine, you now start trying to ping, Google, or trying to ping your DNS if it can resolve, or is it that you don't have an IP address? Is it that your system has lost its IP address? Try to do a look back pinging, or you ping your DNS, or you try and ping Google to see that maybe there's a connection. Then you do a trace route. You now try and check the port if it is a port issue. So you try isolating, troubleshoot and isolate the issue from the physical up to the application layer, right? So that is why I said it helps us basically to isolate and troubleshoot networking problems. So I don't know at this point if we have any issues, but as a cybersecurity personnel, we need to put this at the back of our mind, because you might be given a task to deploy a system, deploy a solution. Even after deploying the solution, and most often time than not, we have customers saying, this particular solution we've deployed, but there are endpoints that are not reporting data. So the question is, when you get this kind of request, how do you troubleshoot it? You have to fall back to your OSI layer model, trying to investigate from bottom top, right? From the physical layer, trying to see, does it have an IP address? Is the port open? Is there a file that is blocking the port? Stuff like this, to investigate the issue and resolve it. So most times, if the network layer is okay, then you can move on to the application layer. Maybe it's a log issue. Investigate on the log level to see whether the application or the services that are running earlier have stopped, or any. Get my point, guys. So I don't know if you have any question at this point. Well, so that is the OSI layer. But over time, OSI layer has been streamed down to what we call the TCP/IP model. OSI layer, a lot of professionals tend to disagree with the OSI layer, not because it's not useful enough or it's not effective, but because they feel that it is redundant. There are a lot of things. For example, the application, the presentation session layer, they feel that it should be classified into just one as application, not having not having presentation, application, or session differently. They just feel that they should all be in the same category, right? So the TCP, so the TCP IP model has 5 layers. The first being application layer. So like I said, the application, presentation, and session are all classified into one, right? Then we have the transport layer. The transport layer, the same, like I've just explained. So the transport layer, like I told you guys, is responsible to ensure that data is transferred without any error in the right sequence. Data is not duplicated. The transmission protocol, we have the TCP and the UDP, right? So then we talked about the network layer, just like we mentioned before, path determination, logical addressing, right? So so guys, we have under the network layer, we have different protocols that you can see. The Icmp protocol, basically used for pinging, right? So when you ping, it is the Icmp protocol that is being used, right? So we have the IP and we have the ARP protocol. Then we have the reverse ARP protocol, right? So these are protocols that exist within the network layer. Then we have the data link layer, where we have the MAC address, right? That is used to identify system within a particular LAN. Then we have the physical layer, guys. So somebody, okay. All right, so this is the TCP. So what is the different? Let's talk about. So this is basically the difference between the TCP, like I said, and the OSI model. The TCP model just encapsulates the application, the presentation, and the session layer, into one, right? We have the transport layer, the same. It's still the same as what we have on the OSI model. So we also have the network layer. It's also called network or internet layer here too, right? And you can see the protocols that exist, just as we've mentioned earlier. You have the data link layer and physical layer. So the TCP model calls this to encapsulate them into the network access layer. So some professionals still prefer putting the data link and physical layer differently, but most often time than not, most people classify them as just for the application, transport, internet, and the network. These are the layers for the TCP/IP model, right? So now let's talk about cyber attacks that exist within this OSI layer or TCP IP models, right? So for the application layer, right, the cyber attacks that we've seen oftentimes is exploits. Exploit kit, like the one we talked about, right? We talked about different exploits exist because try to leverage this application. I'll give you, for example, an attacker, the first thing an attacker does is scanning, right? Reconnaissance, carry out information gathering. Then it carry out scanning and enumeration. During the scanning and enumeration phase, what does the attacker, what is it trying to achieve, guys? What is it trying to achieve during the scanning and enumeration phase? What the attacker is trying to achieve during the scan and enumeration phase, one is to see active IP addresses. Number two, to see if there are any open ports. So now on the application layer, we talked about RDP, FTP protocol. So the attacker is looking for, number one, do we have these protocols running on this system? If yes, what are the ports they are running on? Secondly, if they are running on the right ports, right? Like for example, FTP is running on port 21, right? Telnet port SSH on port 22, SMTP on port 25, right? You have DNS on 53, right? So what's it called? We have the SMB protocol running on 135, 445. So the attacker look at if these ports are open. Then secondly, the services, what services are running on this port? And thirdly, what version of the services? So if the attacker look at the version of the service, then the attacker will start making research, right? To see if there's any exploit that it can use to exploit those vulnerabilities on the services that are running on this port. So on the cyber attack that mostly happens on the application layer is the exploit, right? Exploiting services running on specific port, right? Now, let's go on to talk about phishing on the presentation layer. Phishing, right? You have phishing can come in different formats, in attachments, in URL, right? So in various formats, phishing is the cyber attack. Then on the session layer, hijacking, right? We talked about session, managing session between one user and the other user, sender and receiver. So we can have session hijacking. We can have man in the middle, eavesdropping on the session and trying to maybe, for example, attackers will use Bob suits or eavesdropping solution to eavesdrop and update the packet, and send it to the destination, and try to get, for example, sensitive data from the victim, right? So on the transport layer, what happens is reconnaissance. Like I explained, the reconnaissance trying to check TCP, UDP ports, then the services running on those ports, trying to see if they can, exploit those services or the version if they are updated, if they are outdated, Okay, so somebody have a question.
I was thinking recognizance could also be done at the physical layer.
Sorry, come again.
Can recognizance be done at the physical layer?
Yeah.
Since
Yeah, definitely, correct. So reconnaissance can also be done at a physical layer.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. So then on the network layer, where we have the IP address, the IPsec protocol, we have man-in-the-middle attack trying to eavesdrop on the IPs, trying to look at then the packets, that are being sent via the IP addresses, So then we have spoofing attack, the MAC address spoofing. You can spoof a MAC address, so to make your victim think that the MAC address is from you, but it's from somebody else. So you're just trying to spoof a MAC address to get the IP address, this spoofing is majorly limited within a particular LAN because MAC address are just basically used to identify system in a specific LAN network, right? So we have sniffing for physical address, physical layer. We have the sniffing attack happening within the physical layer because this is where we have the wireless signals. We have what's it called? You have bits, the raw bits being transferred, so you can sniff on data on the physical layer. So this just talked about some of the attacks that we can be exposed to on the OSI layer model. Then if we go on to look at, so as a cybersecurity personnel, you need to also be aware of what we call the IP address. Of course, everyone here knows what IP address is unique to every system, right? So computers, IoT devices have IP address to uniquely identify them. So, and we have IP address is a set of number that is divided into 4 octets, right? So we have, like you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4. First octet, right? Second, third and fourth octet, right? So IP address is divided into 2. We have the public and the private IP address. So the public IP address identifies you on the internet, right? It is what identifies anyone on the internet, but the private IP address, as you can see, is used within a private network, right? So we have more private IP address than public IP address, right? So based on standards that we've found over time, that we have on the networking, as you can see that this is an example of a public IP address. Then we have several private IP address. Why is it this way? Because of the limits, the limited amount of public IP addresses that we have, right? So what companies do is they tend to get 1 or 2 public IP address, then they use the NATing, to make sure that private IP address are translated to public IP address when they are going to the internet. So the internet is just seeing just one, but internally, there are different IP addresses that are using this public IP address to access the internet, right? So that is the concept of network address translation. But of course, network as a cybersecurity personnel, I don't know how nothing will be very useful at this stage, but IP address is very useful. IP address, of course, is very, very useful. You should be able to know what IP address is. So let's talk about the difference between the public and the private IP address. As you can see, they have different classes. The private IP addresses, right, have majorly 3 classes: class A, B, and C, and they are within this range. So for someone was asking me earlier, how do you know if an IP address is public or is private? Is based on the class and the range, right? This does not change. This is what has been defined over time, that for IP addresses that exist between .10 and 10.0.0.0 to this range, 10.255.255 are all class A IP address. Then we have 172.16. So the thing is that I won't say you should cram it, but I think you should keep this information handy. So it's something that if you see an IP address and you want to check, you can come and look at the IP address and take a look. If it falls within any of this range, they are all private IP addresses. Then for public, you also have the public IP addresses. Like I said, the public IP address also has its own range from, you can see, but most of the time, because we are used to private IP addresses, because public IP addresses, they are expensive. You know, for example, if you get a modem, you get a public IP address, but you can, on your own, you don't need to spend anything to create a private IP address on your own network. Your private IP address is unique to your whole network or to your own internal network. But when it comes to public, you need something that is registered. You know, as you can see, that the public IP address range encompasses every number not reserved on the private IP address. You know, they are unique to connect devices connected. There is a unique identifier for each device is connected to the internet. You know, so what I'm trying to say here is that public IP addresses are unique, right? You can't have two the same public IP addresses. They are unique. That's why if, for example, if you are using a modem to connect, they can use it to track you. They can use, if you go on the internet now to, for example, check my, I'm doing this now, check my IP. Right. So guys, you can see my own IP address. You can see my IP address. It's unique to me. This is the IP address of my own modem. It's unique. So the public IP address is like I said, is unique to every system that is connected to the internet. But the private IP address what's it called? Can be duplicated because it's created by you, right? So just trying to go back. Okay, so I don't know if that answers our question. So just basically on the high level, what you just need to know is this, you know, how to just differentiate between the IP public and private IP address. Like I said, it's based on this format. Then we have the IP version Cs. Currently, we have IP version Cs, but it's not currently common because people don't really like IP version Cs because it is more. It consists of like 8 group of 16 bits. It is so long, so most people don't really like IP version Cs IP address. But it is designed to complement IP version 4 IP addresses, right? Most of the IoT devices are the ones that use IP version 6 IP address at the moment, right? Okay, so let's talk about as a cybersecurity personnel, how do you troubleshoot? How do you troubleshoot issues, you know, within your network based on your knowledge on networking? The most important thing that you need to be aware of is, for example, if you how to use ping, telnetting, you know, not just with command line tools, but also with PowerShell, you know, tools to, for example, you want to verify the network configuration. If your network configuration is correct, on PowerShell, you can use this command, you know, ipconfig is what you can use on the command line, right? You can also, for example, identify the network path using traceroutes on the command line. Then you can see on the PowerShell, you can use this traceroute. Also on Linux, you can use traceroutes to identify the paths between hosts, right? So these are some of the that we need to know. Okay, so okay, so we also need to talk about okay, guys, so we need to also talk about localhost. The localhost basically is 127.0.0.1. It is basically used for testing purpose, right? You can use localhost for, don't forget what it means, basically used for testing. So, but for IP version 6, this is what localhost is, :1. That is what it means, right? That is what it means. So at the moment, okay, the MAC address, we talked about MAC address briefly. I said the MAC address is basically used to identify what's it called, your system on a LAN network, right? It is sometimes called hardware addresses because it doesn't change, right? It contains 48-bit address. And so these are examples of what's it called, the MAC address. Like I said, it doesn't change. MAC address consists of 2 parts. You guys can see the MAC address consists of 2 parts, guys. This is, like I said, is a 48-bit address, but it consists of 2 parts. The blue part, you can see like what we have here. This is 8 bits, 8 bits, 8 bits, 8 bits, 8 bits. If you 8 bit times 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that is 48. That's why we have the 48 bit here. So the first 3 8 bits that we have here is called organization unique identifier. You know, it's used to identify the vendor that built that MAC address, that built that devices. So because it is hard coded, then the next one identify the network interface controller, right? So these are just some of the information that you just need to be aware of, you know, on the surface level. Then let's talk about what are the most common the difference between TCP and UDP. We talked about when we're talking about the OSI model. TCP is a connection-oriented, you know, and UDP is connectionless. What does that mean? This means that if a system wants to connect to another system or want to send data using TCP protocol, it needs to establish that the connection between between the source and the destination is correct. Like you see, there's no error, and is reliable before data can be transferred, right? So, for example, if you are calling somebody on the phone, it doesn't use TCP, it uses UDP. That's why you can see there are times that you'll be talking with somebody on the phone and the next thing the person says, I didn't get what you said last, like the person was hearing you at the time, then the next moment is not hearing you again, right? Because it was not a reliable connection. It is based, and each of these 2 types of the TCP and UDP, they both have their own advantage and disadvantage. UDP is fast. That's why it's basically used for calls. VoIPs uses UDP because there's no time to first establish the 3-way handshake. You know, TCP uses a 3-way handshake, you know, to ensure that the connection is reliable before data can be transferred. But there's no time. That's why most times when it has to do with calling signals, use UDP. But for data transfer, use TCP, right? As you can see, as you guys can see. So TCP is more for checks for reliability, error correction, and detection, you know, before data can be transferred. But what's it called? UDP does not check for that. It's connectionless, you know. So as an attacker, you are looking for not just TCP protocols, ports, you're also looking for UDP ports on your victim machines to see how to exploit them, right? You know, and here we have the various uses. You can see TCP are majorly used for file sharing, downloading email, but UDP are used for, you know, voice streaming, video streaming. Basically use UDP because it is very fast, right? So then this is a 3-way handshake. This is also as a cybersecurity professional, you need to understand the 3-way handshake of the TCP protocol, right? Between a client and the server, there's always a sync request that is first sent from the client to the server now, right? Then the server sends an acknowledgement, right? So it's just like I'm talking to you now. The first thing I want to say is that I want to confirm if you are there, if you are available. That is what the sync request does. The server is saying yes, sending an acknowledgement, saying yes, I'm available. What do you really want? You know, so you can say, oh, okay, I just want to confirm you are available. I want to see you, I want to send data to you. I want to send, I want to establish a connection to you. So the client first sent this 3-way handshake to ensure that it has reliable connection before data is transferred. Right? That is what they call 3-way handshake. Sync, arc, That is, there's a sync request from the client. The server send a sync request, an acknowledgement back to the client. Then the clients acknowledge that, okay, I will send back data to you since you are available. So this is a way to establish reliability before data is transferred, right? So once data is transferred, then this client can also send a finished request, FIN, a finished request to the server saying, oh, I finished transferring data. The server responds with an acknowledgement and the client responds so that they can close or terminate the connection. You know, that is how TCP works. But UDP does not work this way. UDP just send the request regardless. So if there's loss of data, you know, the application needs to send that again. Just like we are talking, somebody is telling that, oh, I can't hear you. I have to, you know, repeat myself. That's UDP, right? So common protocols, common ports and protocols. This is also very important as cybersecurity professional. You need to know some of these things at the top of your head. Very what you are doing on the scanning phase, enumeration phase, is to look at some of these protocol and see if they are open on the system, and see if what are the services running on them, and the version of the service running on, how to before you can even start thinking of attacking or hacking the system, right? So these are the things that we need to talk about first. Okay, sorry. So we've been mentioning earlier before now, the FTP, you can see FTP exists on port 20 and 21. SSH is a TCP protocol on 22. We have Telnet on 23. SMTP, simple mail transfer protocol, majorly used to send emails, exist on port 25. You know, so most of these ports are commonly usually open on a company's network. So that's why attackers are always very common about these protocols. The only thing is that, you know, because companies or individuals don't update their system regularly. I will ask you guys a question. When last did you update your system, the TCP version on your system? You understand? Or the SMTP version on your system, or the DNS or DHCP version on your system? Most people don't, you know, most people don't. So that's why there's always exploits now and then, right? That's why there are always exploits now and then. So I'll share this slide with you guys so in case. So let's talk about DNS. So DNS resolve, convert hostname, domain name into IP address, very common. You know, the issue with Facebook was a DNS issue too, where people were trying to request the facebook.com, but it was not available due to, like we said, a faulty configuration change. So DNS is basically very useful, converting host name, system host name, you know, systems that are connected in the network, system host name to IP address, or and it does the vice versa too. So we have different types of DNS. You can see zone. We have the forward lookup zone and we have the reverse lookup zone. So forward is convert names, the host name to IP address. Then if you want to convert IP address back to name, is reverse zone, right? That is the difference between forward lookup and backward lookup. This is very useful. For example, if your system cannot browse to the internet, you already know your host name, or you know the IP address of your DNS server. You can try and resolve it. You want to use NS lookup to resolve it, to see if you can actually get resolved to your DNS. You know, if it's successful, that means you can browse through. If it's not, then there's a connection issue between your system and your DNS server, right? So those are some of the major things that we just need to understand. Apologies, I've used more than, I've gone past my time. Just trying, I think we are almost done about the network connectivity. So we have the, like I said, we have the different types of DNS record. The most important one is the A record. A record is what is used to translate a computer name to an IP version 4 IP address. But for IP version 6, they use the quadruple A record, right? So for mail exchange, use the MX. So these are just the most important DNS, but the most important one is the A record, right? Okay, so the part two of this lecture is giving us link for us on how we can go on to install. For those of us that don't have a lab at the moment, these are the informations that I will share with you. You can follow to see the step-by-step guide on how to, number one, download, if you don't have Kali, how you can get Kali installed on your system, right? So if you want to download the Kali VM, you understand then. If you're using VirtualBox, currently I'm using VMware, and the VMware application, I've installed it. I've put it on this drive so that you can download it because it's a cracked version. So this is a VMware Workstation Pro. It allows you to set up more than one VM, right? You can, so that because we need to have more than one VM. We don't just want to install Kali. We want to have an attacker VM and we want to have a victim virtual machine. That is the scenario that we want to work so that we can use the attacker to start attacking the victim, right? That is what we want to do. So because of time, I won't go through this process, but I will make this slide available. It's very simple easy step-by-step processes that we can follow to install it. But I would advise, if you don't have any, if you are very conversant with VirtualBox, you can use it. If you want to use the VMware Workstation, you can also download it from here. Like you also need some good internet, because for you to download Kali Linux, you need like about what's it called? I think 2 gig. Is it 2 gig?
Yeah, 2 gig. 2 gig.
Yeah, 2 gig to download Kali. So you know. So guys, you need to invest in. I would advise you out of the box. I'll try and tell you the truth, right? You won't go far, or you won't be a very good or effective cybersecurity professional if you don't have a lab. Take it from me, you can't go on just reading books or writing certifications. You need to lab. These days now, people conduct whether interviews using labs, even on your own personal work, you need to be able to lab some stuff. So you need to have lab. If you don't have a very good system, try as much as possible to start investing on get some fund, save up to see how you can get a very good system, then have a lab. It doesn't cost too much. Have a very good lab, so that we can start working. But aside from using the lab, we are also going to be using other platforms like Icmp, to go through some of our coursework. We'll be using Icmp, which does not actually, because even with Icmp, you still need lab, guys, because you still need your Kali to connect to Icmp, right? But you can also still use your Windows, but most times you use your Kali, because most of the tools are on Kali. So you still need to set up your VM if you're going to be using doing our exercise on Icmp or any other exercise that we'll be working on. So please, I will share this like I said, go through it. I want you guys, I will not be doing this for you. I want you to go through it, learn how, go through the step on how to install these things yourself. Then if you have issues, you can talk to Joseph, you can talk to me, you can talk to the class rep, so that we can help you to see how we can help you. But for those of us that already have our lab set up, you have Kali, it's good to go. So so after installing, these are some of these post activities that you need to do. Update your Kali Linux, install some of you can also create a root, update your root account, or create a low privilege account. So these are some of the recommended post activities that you can do if you have set up your your VM, right? So I'll be stopping at this place so that our next class will be going into Linux operating system, so that we'll start talking about Linux. But why I'll be stopping here, so that I will give the team this week, so that those that don't have a lab will go on to download the Kali, right? And then install it, so that we'll all be on the same page. Then if you cannot use the Kali, you can download a small application that is called Tamos. I don't know if, but the thing is that Tamos don't have a lot of a lot of
dependencies.
dependencies and softwares installed. So my best advice is to go to Kali, because if you download Thermos, you have to start downloading each of these applications one by one, and it's going to take time. There's no time, guys. So the best thing is just invest, get some good data and download Kali, set it up with the guide that we have, so that we can move forward from here, because we have a lab. For those of us that already have what's it called, our lab setup, we have a project this week. So I've already given you guys the first project on Let's Defend. Then the second project is on Icmp. This project is going to span from now to next week, to give time to also those students that don't have their lab, so that they can come up with their lab. And this is a project on Icmp. You can go on Icmp. If you don't have an account, go on Icmp, create an account. Then you are going to go on Linux Fundamental and go through this lab. So because we are going to going through it on our later in our classes, but I want every one of you to, this is a project. So once you go on to Icmp now on your system, create an account if you don't have, like I said, then you click on look for Linux Fundamental. You see we have 3 fundamental exercises. I've opened them here. You can see the first is here. Why I like the Icmp is that it has a walkthrough, unlike Hack the Boss, it has a walkthrough giving you hints on what to do, so it introduces you onto what you need to know, specific thing you need to know on Linux. Then you are going to walk through each of them. As you answer this question on your own, you can see as you answer these questions, it's going to change to green. So once you answer each of all these questions, you are going to snap this. You can do a snapshot. Once you answer each of these questions, it's showing green. Do a snapshot, put it on a Word document and send it to us. You can send letter. We'll send you the email where you can attach, or our drive where we can upload it to. But this is the task we are going to be doing. Like I said, it is 3 Linux Fundamental Part 1, Part 2, Part 3. It is a must for everyone to go through this class, because it just shows us the basic things that we need to understand, and like I said, it's a walkthrough. You will see hints by the way they explain certain things that you need to know, and you go through each of them, one at a time. Like I said, if you have any issue, let us know on what you need to do, right? So for you guys that already have the Kali lab, please guys, this is what I would like you to go through. Go on, register on Icmp, then start exercising on this lab, So, and if you have any issue, like I said, drop it on the chat, and then we can work on it. And also, don't forget the Let's Defend, what's it called? Let's Defend projects that we have for you guys. That was what's it called? Trying to I think we're okay. Yeah. Yeah. So this is it. The sub 106. So we'll just go on to investigate this and give us your results. So this all this is for us to be able to build skill, on different platforms and be conversant on what we need to know, So thank you for this class. Sorry, I've used like this almost 24 minutes past the 6 that I was planning to use, but apologies for spending much time again today. Thank you everyone. I don't know if you have any question at this time. Questions, sir.
Yes, sir. And we have the screenshot. Can we have this your slide?
Yes, I'm going to send it to the WhatsApp channel and also on the Slack channel after this class. So if you're on any of them, you get it. All right.
Okay, thank you, sir.
All right, sir. So please,
hi.
any question?
Awesome.
Yeah.
So can you hear me? Yeah, I want to confirm because I think Joseph replied me that I can install it on my Mac. But I want to ask, is it directly on the Mac, or do I need to have a virtual machine on my Mac to install the Kali?
Yeah, you need to have a virtual machine. You need to have a virtual machine. I've not installed it on Mac before, but you can look out for a walkthrough video on YouTube. But I know you need to have a virtual machine on your Mac. Install it. I don't know, maybe VirtualBox have a version for Mac, so or VMware, they should have a version.
There's
They don't have. I actually have a parallel box,
Okay.
which I used to run Windows on my Mac. I don't know if I can install Kali through that. I'll probably check.
Okay, please do check if there's a way for you to do that. Then get back to us, and I will try and look out for a guide to do that and get that across to you.
Thank you.
there's VMware for Mac too. Just check for the DMG, the .dmg. You'll see it.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Joseph.
Yeah, so please, guys, try. I know that some of us are working. I know some people here are working. Some people are even working in the bank. I know how difficult it is, but try and create time, to do this, because I really want you guys to do this yourself. It's going to be difficult, at first if you've not done it before, but I would encourage you, because it is in this process that you learn, you get exposed on resolving issues, especially on the Let's Defend platform that I talked about. Go through it yourself. If you have any issue, box me up. Like this week, like I said, 2 people boxed me up. Like I think it was even their office issues. And I told them to send me the file. We're able to, so you can box me up. We have Joseph there. We have our team lead, our class rep here. So that, because it's a team, it's not just a session that we meet on Saturday. It's a team. If you have issues, let's look at it together. Then let's come up with something on how to resolve it. So if you have any other question, let us know.
Hello, good evening. Please, I didn't get the assignment, the Let's Defend assignment.
Oh, okay. So on the Let's Defend, the first thing that you need to do is to go to let'sdefend.io, create your account. If you don't have any account, once you create account, you get into this part where you're saying, you click on start investigation, right? Because you are new, it will tell you that you have 5 cases, just as you have, it will show you that you have 5 cases for that you can attempt, right? We've done one today, which was let me see, we did one today. So I was recommending that you do that one we did today by yourself again. But the assignment, this is it. This is the one we did today. Then the assignment is this one. This one. What is it called? You can see. Okay, so sorry. It's saying that it requires VIP. Okay, sorry. Let me see this second one. Okay, so that means you are not going to do this possible ransomware, because it seems like it's for VIP. So the next, what we'll be doing will be this new scheduled task created, because this is open for us to work on. So it will be, so once you log in, you'll see it this way. This was the one we did today, and this is the next one that has that is new scheduled task created. This is one. All you need to do is come here, take ownership. Once you've taken ownership, then you go through the playbook, right? You go through the playbook like this. Right, so you see it here on the investigation part. You can see, then you start going through. Then you click on create case. You see it on the create case, so that you can go through the what's it called, the questions one at a time. Once you click on create case, you start going through the questions, and like we did for that previous one, you take the hash files. You can see we have an hash file. Go through Virustotal based on the playbook question that was being asked. Start investigating, then click your responses, then just go through all the playbook questions like that to the end, then do a snapshot for us and put it on the doc, put your name and send it to the drive, right? So that we can confirm that you attend to the questions, and if you have any issue, you can let us know. I don't know if that answers the question.
All right, thank you.
All right, so yeah. So basically, the purpose for this is to ensure that we build that cybersecurity analyst analytical skill, on how to investigate real threat. Like I said, these are real threats. These are not simulated threats. They are real threats. So you should be able to look at, establish, how do you analyze this real threat? That is what we are trying to establish here, skills on, analyzing threats and malwares.
Hello, yeah, sorry, Joe, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Oh, is that Prince? Prince, that's Prince, right?
Yes, it's Prince.
All right.
Yeah. So you're talking about threat hunting, right?
Yeah, sure.
I want to ask, like, apart from the less defined platform, what SIM solution are you?
Sorry, what
SIM solutions are we going to use for the threat hunting?
Oh, so it's going to be an open source intelligence platform. So this is what we are going to use. We are not using a SIM solution. We are going to make use of any.run, right? We are going to use any.run. I don't know if you join us in the first session that we had. I don't know. Did you join us?
Because
okay. So try and go through the record. Try and go through the recording and see what we did. So we use any.run. We make use of Virustotal. Then we used hybrid analysis. You can see the hybrid. So what we did was use open source intelligence platform. We didn't use a specific SIM. We use open hybrid analysis. We make use of Virustotal to do that. And then we make use of what's it called, any.run platform, as you can see, to investigate the threats. Those are the open source platforms, sandbox environment that we used. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right. So guys,
please, can we ask our questions on the chat? Because the time, we don't want to keep people waiting. Sorry.
Please, if you have any question, you can direct me, send it to me. So like I said, our purpose here is to learn both this analytical and the defensive skills. So this open source platform is currently used in most organizations, because it's an open source sandboxing environment, and it's worked just like the commercial version. I've worked with Group IB solution, I've worked with EDR, McAfee EDR. They just work the same thing, just the same way. It's just like this is limited to like 1 hour for you to analyze a file. So, but I don't think you need up to an hour for you to analyze whatever file you're trying to use, right? So.
You call me. You speak with me.
All right. Sorry. Is there any question? Can we drop off? Okay. Joseph.
Okay. So thank you so much for joining. Please ensure you do the assignment. Those exercises are very